Welcome back. This is the 17th episode of the Painted Privacy video series, and I'm the artificial avatar of Luca Bolognini, European data lawyer and essayist. In this episode, we'll talk about objectivity, legal severity, and bad thoughts. As the Finns say, let's put the cat on the table. This is a handy expression I often use with colleagues and clients to encourage an honest and frank approach to difficult and thorny issues. Just like in the still life of the great Jean-Baptiste Simeon Chardin, which you can admire in lower right corner, where the cat, full of life and devilish defiance, sinking its claws into the oysters on the table, is far more unsettling than the poor ray hanging from its hook for which the painting is named. Cutting to the chase, those who work in professions like ours, in the field of legal compliance, are appointed to tell their clients and interlocutors the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Or, at the very least, they should be compensated for interpreting the truth in a credible and defensible way, and certainly not for pandering to the subjective wishes, or worse still, the whims of the client. I also spoke about this in my book, The Art of Privacy. The result of an audit or compliance due diligence and gap analysis is often full of bitter fruit that leaves a bad taste in the mouth of any manager or entrepreneur. And yet it is our professional duty to be precise and objective, to accompany the client in analyzing the tangled knot and identifying possible remedies to unravel it. If no legal remedies exist, then we are under an obligation to point this out and to explore viable options for mitigating the inevitable negative repercussions, without being overdramatic or destructive, but by reasoning with empathy. After all, there needs to be a limit to the cruelty of compliance and an almost humanitarian sense of decency on the part of the consultant or data protection officer. What possible use would a cruel advisor be? Here below on the left, you can admire, with a shudder, one of the most famous paintings from the early 17th century that featured grisly biblical scenes, the work of Artemisia Gentileschi. It is the dramatic first version of Judith beheading Holofernes. If you want to torture yourselves further, there is a second version housed at the Uffizi Gallery, after which you can enjoy another disturbing masterpiece by Artemisia, Jael, and Sisera, which is striking in a different way, with its seraphic but spine-chilling serenity. I could list dozens of other pulp paintings, which are both engrossing and gross, starting with Caravaggio's famous Judith grappling with the ill-fated general. There needs to be a limit to cruelty, as I was saying. In recent years, I have wondered not so much what inspired artists to paint such gory scenes. The reasons are usually allegorical, historical, or tied to specific commissions inflamed by personal grudges, as in the case of Artemisia against the odious figure of Agostino Tassi, her raper and friend of her father, as what on earth possesses certain collectors to display them in their homes, in their living rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, and studios. Why would anyone choose to hurt themselves like that in the intimate spaces of their everyday life? Leaving aside the value and quality of the work, we cannot pretend that it does not represent what it represents, or that the subject matter does not unsettle the eye and the soul. Can certain content serve as a moral warning, as an educational caution, as a memento mori? Maybe so. I recall an entrepreneur from northern Italy who proudly showed me what looked, at first glance, to be a poster hanging on the wall of his office. It was a framed and decorated copy, blown up to 1 meter by half a meter in size, of the penalty notice that the Privacy Authority had issued against his company for marketing violations a few years previously. He wanted to remind himself and his employees of that episode so as not to repeat the same mistakes. Commendable, if a little hard on himself. Another image featuring felines in the upper left corner, a table of cats dressed as humans, from the visionary genius of Louis Wain. It depicts what the title says, The Bachelor Party, 1896. I prefer to imagine that, instead of a rowdy rite of passage, those eccentric characters are conducting a focus group on ethics, and that this is the most riveting and entertaining phase, the one where they are asked to think badly. In my experience as an ethics advisor for research and innovation projects, And in general, when it comes to involving stakeholders in impact assessments, whether they are DPIAs on privacy matters or extended to the whole range of fundamental rights and freedoms, when the time comes for opinion-gathering cold call questionnaires are not enough. It makes more sense to organize broader in-person meetings with representative samples of individuals who might be impacted in various ways, either actively or passively, by the new projects. These forums serve many purposes, all of them noble and essential. To gather ideas for identifying threats and risks. There is no carved-in-stone catalogue when it comes to risks to people's rights and freedoms. To co-create common methods for assessing and calculating probability and severity, here too there are no standard one-size-fits-all toolkits. And for identifying potential ethical, legal, organizational, and technical mitigation measures. It is during these lively sessions when the debate is already heated that, with a wry smile, I ask the participants, usually full of good faith and intentions, to start to think badly, to be diabolical, and to imagine how things might go horribly wrong, either accidentally or deliberately. Confusion quickly gives way to amusement and fertile ground for inventiveness. The wiles and worries that emerge then are invaluable and indispensable for anticipating trouble and counter-trouble. Si vis pacem para bellum. And so, it seems to me, the roguish cats perfectly embody that role pro tempore, representing that phase of well-intentioned malice that has the power to unlock redeeming rationalizations in the analysis of risks and context. Naturally, I face the dilemma of whether it is ethical, medice curati ipsum, to make the participants do this exercise that involves an unethical simulation. I have no definite answers yet, but I can try to guess your, perhaps, evil thoughts on the matter. Thanks for following this very bad 17th episode of Painted Privacy, and see you next time with Luca Bolognini's artificial avatar.